Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 308. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I am the king of crossovers, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to be talking about the culling, all four parts of the culling. We're also going to be taking a look at three of the books that are tying into Night of the Owls. We're going to talk about Batman the Dark Knight, number 9, Red Hood and the Outlaws, number 9, and All-Star Western, number 9, as we continue our coverage of that great crossover event as well. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, it's the beginning of June, which means the brand new deals are going to be coming on their website. Anything from 35 to 75% off on new comic books, hardcovers, trades, statues, everything that you're looking for. So it's a great opportunity to go to their website and get ready to start browsing through to see what kind of deals you can get this month. Over at InStockTrades.com, I'm really excited about this. I love these DC original hardcovers that have been coming out, and this Batman Death by Design Deluxe Edition hardcover just came out. It's regularly $24.99. InStock Trades is offering it as a special deal this week, 50% off, only $12.49. This is an original graphic novel by writer-designer Chip Kidd with artist Dave Taylor. It's a great chance for you if you missed this one to pick it up at an amazing deal. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, and that's InStockTrades.com. And I want to thank both DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to remind everybody about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. Those will be returning with next week's episode. So if you want to get any commentary in on the show, please make sure to call our show voicemail line. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
You filthy criminals.
Jim, on this episode, I want to talk casually about the Teen Titans Legion Lost crossover, The Culling, which is leading to that new series, Ravagers. I've really been enjoying Titans. It is one of those series, I made mention of it back when we originally started going through the New 52. Titans was one of those series because I was enjoying what J.T. Krull and Nicholas Scott were doing so much that I wasn't really excited to have this team rebooted. I felt like Titans had finally gotten into a really strong groove. I felt there was a creative team who was telling some big epic stories with them. It was everything that I wanted from Titans. So I think it's important to note that because you're taking now a series where I was walking in with kind of that stigma behind me, and it's a compliment to the current creative team that they turned me around relatively quickly. By that first issue with Red Robin really has been my focal point early on with this book as being the guy that, like, they nailed. They got him just right. I've really been digging him. He feels like at the core who Tim Drake is to me. And then gradually along the way, we've been introduced to Wonder Girl and Kid Flash and Solstice and just the new characters as we've been going along. But it really was the Red Robin focus for me. I got to tell you whose story I'm really digging, Kid Flash. Like, I love the mystery revolving around him. Like, what is going on with this multiple sets of memory that he has? And, who was he in his I guess in the future? There is that premise that he was still from the future. Who was he then? What brought him to present day? And why the change in his mannerisms, the way he carries himself? Because it seems like he was a villain in the future.
Oh, definitely seems like that. Because a couple of times when Timberwolf is attacking him, and it's like, yeah, I recognize you. All the people you killed, all the people who died because of you, and he was ready to gut him. And Bard's like, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I thought that is because we as the readers have the basic knowledge, and we're assuming that Bart is the same Bart Allen from the future, grandson of Barry Allen and whatnot. And that's probably the truth, but there's always going to be a little bit extra, kick to the story. Because in the past, he was sent back to live here, and because of the speedsters and all that, yada yada. Well, this story, it's there was no past speedsters for him to learn from or get knowledge from. Barry is the first of the speedsters. Barry's the initial entrance into the Speed Force. So it's definitely going to change. It's changing around his story a little bit, so they're going to tweak with it. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens. I want to know eventually it play out and hear everything that happened to him. But right now, I'm happy with how they're doing this.
You mentioned the fact that he was having that issue with Timberwolf, but I loved how Tellus stepped in. Did you read it that, like, Tellus either altered Timberwolf's mind or convinced Timberwolf that, like, hey, you need to drop this right now, and here's why? Because it really seems like Tellus was saying for Bart, his future and where he goes is open-ended for him. Meaning that Bart does have the ability to be the hero that we're seeing now, to be that guy, and to craft his own life as a blank slate. My question is, are these memories, obviously on some level these memories are buried in his subconscious? What happens when he finds out who he was, and how do you deal with that?
Well, he's going to find out who he was, and that's going to be the interesting side of it, to see this playful jokester that is Bart Allen had a completely different personality. And I'm betting full on just darkness, evil, bad guy vibe, killing people and probably enjoying it. And he's going to come reality with, this is who I am now. This is who I was. Who's the real Bart Allen? And, I'm assuming he's going to choose this Bart Allen as being him and not follow the path of darkness, but you never know. And it's, I took it completely that Tellus just, subdued Timberwolf for a bit, but not erased the mind. That was more of a, hey, he hasn't done these actions that you're accusing him of yet. It's got to happen. It hasn't happened yet, or this isn't the same person. Let's focus on what we have to do now and not what was done in the future.
Now, our Titans lineup right now, let's just go through the players. We've got Skitter, Red Robin, Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, Solstice, Superboy, and Bunker. Superboy's not really official yet, I guess, but I guess his crossover is really where we see Superboy start to become a member of the team with his rescue at the hands of the Teen Titans. Yeah. I really liked how that played out and how Superboy's rescue made him look at this team in a different way, saying, hey, wait a minute, these are people I was trying to kill. And because it's the right thing to do, the quote-unquote right thing to do, they're taking this stand and rescuing me. It makes him question everything that he's known for his brief existence. All of his training, his goals and objectives because of, Nowhere and this whole group that he's been with. I don't know, it's something for me that I've really enjoyed seeing Superboy's character development. I've loved that the creative teams of both Teen Titans and Superboy have been so linked, because I really feel like we've been getting at many times mirror images of storylines, like where you've been seeing Superboy's perspective on what's going on in his book, the Teen Titans perspective on the other, and I think it made me more excited for the culling and this kind of merging now of Superboy being now a part of this team. We got to see his journey to get there. And there's something richer about that. Like, the world of the Teen Titans, both on the good guy and the bad guy end, is a lot more fleshed out for me because of it. And I really feel like this crossover is coming at a really brilliant time for them where I'm anticipating it. Superboy was another relaunch that I was very worried about because I was very into Superboy. And I've got to say, we've talked about it on the show recently, I'm very into the Superboy book now, and it's all a part of this whole Titans universe. Go ahead.
Oh, big time, man. And I was very nervous about Superboy, about Titans, and just about these characters that I really enjoyed, and I knew who they were. I knew where they're coming from, where they were going, and everything was changing. The past was changing because we're, shortening the length of the DC universe. So right there, that changes the teen heroes. And was there ever a Teen Titans before this? Did Dick Grayson have a unit that he called something else? Don't completely know the answer to that, but I'm okay with what we got, what's going on here. This is the first meeting of these heroes. This is the first incarnation of these heroes as a team. And I was thrown off a little bit when I first heard that Superboy wasn't going to be on the team initially. He was going to be the bad guy. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And I didn't know how I felt. And then as you see his lack of moral fiber, his lack of what is right, what is wrong, get played out through those virtual reality simulators. And then slowly Superboy starts to get just this concept and this idea. And by the end of the culling here, he has a very solid right and wrong. There's still room to growth. There's still going to be human interaction. He's still only Superboy. He's not Connor. And I'm assuming we'll get Connor, and I'm assuming maybe one day even Connor Kent. But there's gonna something else is gonna there's room for more growth. And this Teen Titans Superboy balance that we're getting has been actually really nice, because we have the Superboy title moments where it's the personal growth of Superboy, just more of the reflection. Then we have these Teen Titan moments where it's him in this team dynamic. It's him dealing with other people. And you get a nice balance of the character growth and development through these two titles. Add in some stuff coming through with Legion Lost, and you have a nice solid build-up, a nice solid growth in 9 issues. So this is definitely a really good usage of multiple titles. It's a good usage of multiple creative teams, but it's also a good coordination between all these titles. I think for me, as much as we raved and loved the Night of the Owls, Court of the Owls, all the owl stuff going on, which I do absolutely am crazy about, this culling here was just a really, really good usage of multiple titles and a multiple title crossover that, you can get enjoyment out of. And you can, if you stick, I'm reading all the issues, so I can't say flat out, if you only get this, you won't be lost. But one of the weird things I did in reading this was I kind of read them out of order. And I did that because I wanted to see, if I'm only reading Teen Titans, would I be able to handle the culling? Would I be able to understand what happened? So I read the culling Part 1, Teen Titans Annual, and then I read Teen Titans number 9, the conclusion. I never read Parts 2 or 3, because I wanted to see, if I just read 1 and 4, am I going to be lost? Am I going to be confused? And I actually had a pretty solid story being told, and I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of neat. These are some cool Titan moments. Now, when I went back and read parts 2 and 3 in Superboy, and then in Legion Lost, I was like, oh, okay, this kind of fleshes out the story more and makes me enjoy the overall story a little bit more. But just focusing on the Teen Titan titles, I was able to enjoy myself.
I wonder if there's anybody. And see, I growing up, I read things like Marvel Superheroes, Secret Wars, and just obviously crossovers coming after that from both companies. But one of the things I remember from Secret Wars, at the time, my budget on the Marvel end, I was reading X-Men. I was reading Uncanny X-Men. That was the book I was reading. So I followed into Secret Wars because a lot of the X-Men characters were involved in this big event. And through that, Spider-Man got the black costume for the first time. I got really into the Avengers in it and Captain America's role in the whole battle. So I ended up reading some Spider-Man, some Captain America, and some Avengers. It was broken issues because I didn't have a whole lot of budget at the time. But it was, I guess my point is, because I was reading that crossover, and that was a mini-series more than a crossover, but it did really impact that universe at the time. Because Spidey came back with that costume, and that's what I ended up following. I really got into Spider-Man's black costume because it was so cool and it was alive, and it was great that was a factor of it. I wonder if there's people listening right now, and I'm always curious about this, that through this crossover, because it's a 4-issue crossover. So let's say you're reading just Teen Titans. You really have to grab 1 issue each of Superboy and Legion Lost if you want to just get the 4-parter in this. And maybe the prelude issues, which there was 2 of them leading up to this. If you want to grab like the little teasers leading in, if you weren't reading those particular titles. I wonder if there's people who maybe weren't reading Legion Lost before that jumped on Legion Lost because of this. Maybe weren't reading Superboy before. If you're reading Legion, like say you're a Legion fan and you jumped to this Culling crossover, maybe you started picking up Superboy or Teen Titans because of it. I would love to know that. Was it something where reading this storyline made you interested in characters that you weren't previously reading? Because I thought this was really a solid crossover and a great way to introduce both team dynamics. I thought they did a great job of spotlighting the characters, because the Legion Lost team, let me just go through them real quick the same way I did the Teen Titans team. We have Gates, Dawnstar, Timberwolf, Tyrock, Tellus, Wildfire, and Chameleon Girl. And I really want to echo some of your comments about how tight this crossover was. I liked that Legion Lost. I was trying to figure out, like, why would Legion Lost be in there, other than, I guess, we're seeing them as a almost a teenage group. And they just happen to be, it's the Legion, and, somehow they were going to get pulled into this event. I love that there was a deeper reason for them to be involved in the culling that I didn't see coming. Being that they were actually brought back here from the future specifically to be a part of this. That this was something that Harvest engineered, that Harvest is from the future, and this was something that even the Legion was pulled into. So their being trapped here the reason for being trapped here was a ruse. And I love that some of the Legion know about that. And that's going to cause some really interesting internal dynamics with this Legion group. Go ahead.
Well, and it's interesting because we have that cool ending in issue 9 where Fire Dude,
Wildfire?
Thank you. I always draw a blank on Fire. I'm like, it's the Fire guy. What's his name again? But, with him, opening up the costume and just, dropping the nuke, which, of course, Harvest laughs at. But you have that ending, and then in the Titans issue, you have them getting back another time bubble. And there was a cool editor note that talks about, see how this terribly goes wrong in issue 10.
Yeah.
And that was something I'm really curious as to how that's going to read through and how that's going to connect ability. Because if you're only picking up Legion Lost, you see the issue where he drops the bomb, and then the next issue, everyone's going to be back together, and it's going to be dealing with that bubble. So it's funny because even though the culling is quote-unquote done, I'm really curious about the Legion Lost follow-up and what's going to happen in Legion Lost. So it's, for me, I saw this as a Teen Titans Superboy crossover with, the Ravengers, and an appearance by Legion Lost. Well, now at the end of it, I'm like, this is equally a strong Legion Lost crossover. This is equally, it's pulling me in tighter to that title as well. Whereas I was only originally thinking Teen Titans and Superboy and Ravengers is going to pull me in. And for me, that was a nice surprise and a nice, that's cool.
What I like for all of the titles involved in this, their issues leading up to this event, all of them have built to this. Like, this is a culminating event that all of these titles, there's not one of them that's like some kind of throwaway title, like, why is it involved? They're all, like, they've built to their point to be a part of this. All of the threads connected in a way where I'm like, oh my gosh, like big reveals for each title. But like you're saying, it doesn't end here. This event has a critical impact that looks very different for each of the titles involved. So even if you're reading one of the titles, you feel like if you've read this one and you picked up each of the tie-in books, that there's going to be some impact to this. It was worth reading this event. This is not something where like, okay, the story's done now we're going to go do something else. No, this is something that's going to resonate in these books ever since then. So, I mean, I think there's a value for people that are reading all of them, and I think there's a value for people who might be reading one or two of these books. And I'm a big fan of that. Or, people who are going to be, like you said, Ravagers, that's going to be a title that they're going to jump on. I think that's, again, a lot of value that's coming out of this. And I don't know, that's something I'm a big fan of. I think when you do an event, and then the event has a strong feeling of impact, and everything has built to that. I like the build. To me, I'm a big fan of the build where when you get to the event, it's been like things that you've had questions about are starting to be revealed along the way. I felt we learned a lot about the Legion in this. I think we learned a lot about the Titans in this and individual members. And, a lot of reveals, I think, from Kid Flash, a lot of reveals from the dynamic of this current Legion team, how they seemed like they were really close-knit and tight because they are members of the Legion, but there are some of them that are keeping secrets from the others. Leadership structure in the Legion right now is very much in flux. There are people vying for power. Tyrock seems to be the man, but not everybody kind of goes along with that because they don't always agree with his philosophy or his way of handling situations, which is interesting. What happens with it when you've got friends that you're super close with and they're keeping huge secrets from you? I love Gates because I feel like Gates is another character that he's an enigma, There's a lot of stuff with Gates where I think he reveals things, and there's a lot of stuff with Gates where he's deliberately not revealing things. Obviously Chameleon Girl, we know, big player in all this, but Tellus as well. So there are significant members, and I think those are the three players, my impression, those are the three Legionnaires that seem to know a lot more of what's going on. And I'm not entirely convinced that the three of them all have the same information set. I don't know that they're all linked. Those three are linked. They could be. Part of that squad right. Where, but I don't know. Are you getting that vibe? Like, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced that those three players all know the same amount of information as each other does.
No, they definitely don't. And I'm reading it the same way you are, where it's they're holding back information, but each one of them probably has a little bit more. And you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about leadership. I like Tyrock. I think it's I've liked how he's doing and how he's progressing, but you start to see the breakdown. You start to see there's the questioning of authority. They were a mission from the future. Boom. Yeah, he was set as the team lead of it. Well, once everything, time bubble broke, everything started happening, the mission changed. And is he still the correct leader for this situation? Is he the person they should be following? Should they be going a different route? Should they look somewhere else? Should they be, is this the correct path? And I like the fact that these guys are questioning it. They're still a team unit. None of them have said, I'm going to branch off on my own. I'm better off by myself, because they know they wouldn't be. But they're not 100%, into exactly where this is going. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to the next issue, because everything that happened here in the culling, we're going to get even more stuff. It's going to, this is just the build and the progression. I'm really excited for Legion Lost, because I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know what's going to happen next. And even just the mysteries on top of the mysteries, and then you got this swerve that's going to come out of nowhere. This has been a title, as I said, I love the Legion of Super. I'm a Legion fan now, but for me, this Legion of Lost is kind of edging out that other Legion, just because there's so many different ways this could go. And I like that mystery. I like the surprise. I like oh my God, I didn't see that one coming. Okay. And there's definite excitement that's still brewing.
One of the things I really liked was, first of all, in the annual, it was great to see Artemis. And kind of, nice nod back to Young Justice and that character's role. It was great to see that. That was something for me that I geeked out with. Unfortunately, we see the end of Artemis as well.
Yeah, hi and bye.
Also, the introduction of the new Thunder and Lightning, which was great, because I loved the character concept. Obviously, we don't know if there's a Black Lightning in the new 52, because we haven't seen that character yet. And obviously, his kids wouldn't be in existence. So this introduction of a new Thunder and Lightning makes sense. And I know these two characters are supposed to be on Ravagers, so it's going to be great to see them continue, because I really enjoyed them together. I loved that their priority was protecting each other. So whenever they would break up into squads with the Titans and the Legion and help out in those groups, they would override orders that they were given and say, well, my priority is Thunder, or my priority is Lightning, and these were the direction that these characters would go, and it would make sense that they did that. One of the things I really enjoyed about this crossover was these aren't people on any level that know each other very well. They're relationships of convenience, team-ups of convenience. And because of that, the relationships are very tentative. The trust is very tentative. I loved, the Legion was doing, their, telepathic connection as far as communicating with each other, but that they weren't immediately sharing that with the Teen Titans. That was something where through battle, first battling with them, and then battling against them, I should say, then battling with them on the same side. It really was something where organically they had to make the decision to say, okay, mid-battle here, we're all being attacked. At first, we were being played against each other to wear ourselves out, and I loved that. I love that Harvest was playing them against each other to wear them down, then to bring in all of these other ones to really do the final blow, not realizing that these teams would team up and utilize their resources together as a way to stand together and hold their ground and survive. And it really was a relationship built on the need for survival, but trust wasn't there immediately. That was something that had to be earned through battle and over time. And it wasn't really till almost the very end of this crossover where we finally saw them communicating, all of them, through that telepathic link. Something I really enjoyed, that wasn't something immediately given. That wasn't something that they immediately... Because a lot of times I think in these crossovers, you have Hero A battling Hero B, and then after they realize they were stupid for fighting, they instantly trust each other, and they band together, and it's like they've been comrades at arms all along, and they're sharing things and fighting, and it all just seems to work out that way. I love that this wasn't that clean. It took time to build to that. They were helping each other, yes, but it was tentative, a feeling out process, gradually sharing information, but not even trusting the information they were sharing immediately. Like maybe they were only feeding just enough to let the other team know things that would be of benefit to their team. And that was something that I thought was really natural, made a lot of sense. Like, why would you give too much information? Why would you say too much about what you could do? Let them in on too much information about the team, because it could be twisted and turned and used against you if the other team wasn't on the up and up. Especially when, like, the Legion had a reason with the future, this Titans doesn't exist in their mind. And vice versa, the Titans obviously have no clue who the Legion are. So why would these two teams trust each other immediately? It doesn't make any sense. And I love that.
Oh, God, yeah. And it was one of the things that I liked was Harvest as a villain. He's a really good, master manipulator, just the puppet master laying down the strings. And we always say it's, some of the best superhero stories are when they have a very formidable villain. And we have this Harvest who's very powerful, and he put together his original Ravengers, who he was, they're outnumbered and outgunned, but they still were destroying everybody. Reason being, he trained them well. He prepped them well. He picked the right weapons to augment, to adjust, and make them into, these killing machines. And I loved seeing just the initial glimpses of it, because initial Ravengers took down the Legion.
Jim, Ravagers. What? You keep adding an N to it, and I think I'm guilty of it too at times. It's Ravagers.
Yeah, Ravagers.
There's no N.
It's a tomato. It's close enough.
This is from the guy who regularly at episodes goes, just so people aren't throwing their iPods. And I think I've been guilty of doing that too, adding that extra N to it, but it's Ravagers.
Yeah, Ravagers. Okay. But that team took down the Legion, and the Legion wasn't fresh coming together. They've had years together. They've had training together. They were an established team already. So I loved seeing that fight go down. I loved seeing that they could actually take down this experienced, fighting force. And then you see them up against the Teen Titans. Well, Teen Titans, yeah, there's some power there, but they are not, a cohesive unit yet. They're still building that. So you can make sense. Yeah, it makes sense that they'd be able to take them. Then when we get these final big, massive battles, I'm like, you know what? I'm loving how he played this. This was a great, just usage of, multiple strategies in play, multiple, divide, conquer, deviate, have them fight each other, wear themselves out. There's going to be natural non-trust issues. There's going to be problems that are going to arise. Play off of those, manipulate them, use it to your advantage. I love seeing that stuff.
I like when the team, like when Artemis dies, I love that you see, again, the different experience levels of the team members, especially with Titans, where you see Tim being the veteran of the group, basically, and reminding everyone not to make it about revenge. Let's keep our emotions in check. Let's think like a squad. And these are things that were really important for the people who aren't as seasoned to working with a partner, working with somebody else where they've got to really think about, hey, I need to stay on my A game. I need to make sure that I know what my role is in protecting the whole group. And this is a team that's gradually coming together. It's not a team that is seasoned in cooperating. But over time, they start to gain a respect for Tim and his leadership role, which is something that I really enjoy seeing. That, again, that wasn't something that was immediately granted or given. As a matter of fact, to the point where we've seen in issues of Titans where they were basically letting him go on his own until finally Wonder Girl got up and said, come on, I guess we can. I can't let him go off in a battle. I love that. Felt natural for me. I love how they're saying, and why would we do this? Like, you want us to do what and why? And I love that they just immediately said, no. and they gradually went and got into this whole thing versus jumping right into the whole situation. I know it was something that, why would we go help Superboy? Why would we get involved in all this? They were asking all the questions that I think, why would you help somebody who was trying to kill you and who was your enemy? That was something that I thought's very natural in this book. I really appreciate that about both teams. I think we've got people that are reacting in a way that feels human and natural. I love that not every single player on both teams agrees with everything that the team does. Personality quirks are brought to the forefront. And this is really a series of books, all of these, even Superboy's solo book, are about the relationships of the characters within, good and bad, and gray area. And that's something that always hooks me into a book, is when it's not... I love great action. That's very, very important to me. But when you give me great action with strong character drama and relationships that are being developed and fleshed out throughout these battle sequences that have been gradually built to over time, that's something that keeps me coming back for more and wants to see where these characters then are going from here. I care. They matter to me. And this is, again, I walked into, not Legion Lost, but I walked into both Superboy and Teen Titans initially when this relaunch happened. I walked into both of those books very tentative, very watchful of whether or not these are going to be books that I'm going to want, to continue following, which I'm not used to with any of these characters. These are characters that I've had strong relationships with since they were introduced, particularly Tim and Superboy.
Yeah.
And to see them, really, I think they've hit a home run with these books. That's something that I'm really, really glad that's happening. Not knocking anything that came before. I mentioned that great one with J.T. Krull and Nicholas Scott. I loved that. But I love this for being this new version, this new direction of it. I love Solstice being a part of this, but I also love the new characters like Bunker. I'm really starting to like him. He's been one where I've been kind of not so sure about him. I thought he was kind of cheesy at first. I'm like, Bunker, really? This is what we're going with? Skitter, I also was kind of the same way. But and this is a testament again to creative teams, as we've gotten to know more about each and how they protect each other and how their relationship is, that's something that has made me turn a corner and get interested in these characters as well. Because I think that I was looking forward to maybe having more of the classic Titans, and now I'm convinced that there's a great balance of characters that we've loved in the previous run and new people that can tell new stories and new directions. So, I don't know. I just think it's a really nice balance.
Well, I tell you that Bunker, I kind of digged him from the beginning. He was, for me, it was that kind of, hey, how you doing? Yeah, hero type of style. And then as the character, the person behind that, the bravado sort of fleshed out, I was like, okay, once I saw there was more to him than just that initial how you doing kind of style that he was presenting when they first introduced him, I was like, okay, there's something more to this kid, and I want to see where this goes. And I want to, and especially he's someone throughout this whole Culling, throughout all of this adventure, throughout all this strife, has really risen up as a hero for me. I'm glad he survived, and I was kind of worried about him because he was a created character. He was a new character. I was worried they were going to create him, get me to like him, get me used to him, then kill him off. Kind of go for that emotional roller coaster with the characters. So I was glad to see he survives the Culling, and we're going to get some more stuff out of him and see where his character direction goes.
I'm with you. That was something that this is a character who I with you. I thought that like maybe we wouldn't have any direction with him, or we were just going to see him for just a little bit of time. And I've been pleasantly surprised by how he's been used, because he was a character that I didn't see. You liked him right from the get-go. I didn't dislike him. He felt kind of wooden and generic to me at first, but that was because the team hadn't had a chance to really flesh him out and get me interested. And now they have. And that's something that I think has really worked for me as it's gone along. And you don't have to agree with me or have the same way. I actually really like that maybe we have different experiences and different sense of open-mindedness about the character going on. I think that's interesting.
Cassie was the one, that kind of has me going, what the heck's going on here? Because I want to know more about Wonder Girl and see where, what her past is. We've already gotten good glimpses. We've already gotten good idea of where she's coming from. But, when we talk about, for me, Tim feels the same.
Yeah.
Connor, completely different, but I'm starting to see the glimmers of the Connor that I really liked. Wonder Girl is still this is a new version of her. She's an interesting character and she's an interesting hero, but she still is a new version of her for me. And that's something where I'm like, I still haven't gotten a solid, yes, Wonder Girl moment.
She isn't and she isn't. Because you read her starting with Teen Titans.
Right.
So you never knew the character prior to that. I think that this version of her, I agree with, there is a new factor to her, especially with the whole armor thing. She's wearing an armored suit, and then every time she uses that power is gradually, killing her? Is that what it was?
It seems like it.
And, I guess that's a question. You have an opportunity to have superpowers. And this kind of goes back to a lot of what we saw with Thunder Agents, for example. Now, it seems like it's not quite to that level, though. Or maybe, I'm wrong. I don't know if you're reading it maybe differently than I am. But would you, for the kind of power that Wonder Girl's packing, would you be willing to take that kind of long-term damage to yourself?
See, no, I wouldn't. That's one of the things with, and we always joke around when we talk Thunder Agents about how I wouldn't want to be on the Thunder Agents. It's for that exact kind of reason. And that's part of the thing where I'm not really getting a solid connection to her because, that's the big difference between this Wonder Girl and the Wonder Girl I'm used to. And there is a little bit of mystery of how much is it killing her? Is this going to someday come to head? Is she going to have those moments where she has to lose her powers? Or are we going to learn something else about her? And I like unanswered questions, but I for some reason, her unanswered questions, her mystery, her enigma behind her powers, behind her armor, is keeping me from getting a connection to her. Whereas the unanswered questions about Bart keep me interested in him and want me to learn more about him. The unanswered questions with her is keeping her kind of at a distance from me. And I'm like, I'm not embracing her as a character.
See, I am. And I'm with you that I haven't been initially with her. But as we've got to know about this armor and what's kind of driving her distance from everybody and why she keeps things secret, it starts to make a lot more sense. She isn't an Amazon. She doesn't have these internal powers. Her powers are strictly coming from the suit of armor. She has no link to Wonder Woman. This is a huge difference for her. And that's something that she keeps very close to the cuff. She doesn't want anyone to know. It makes sense that she doesn't want anyone to know. It's funny. I've got to say, I have a different vibe from her and her having these powers than I do from Thunder Agents in the sense that I had to really ask myself, boy, she can fly. She can fight. Okay, we're giving up. How much are we giving up? And time-wise, to be able to fly, to have that super strength. I don't know what I would do in that situation. Because there's that part of me there's that self-preservation part of me, but there's another part where you could see that there would be almost like a junkie aspect to what she's doing. Where once because you got to think you'd try them on, right?
Yeah, see, there would be that temptation. And with me, it's funny, we talk about flying, and I'm like, I don't know how much I would enjoy flying because I would be the superhero who flies 10 feet off the ground because he's afraid of heights. But, I also say that about, speeding, driving fast cars, and just I personally have a little bit issues with speed. But when we're dealing with the power, being able to punch a wall and shatter it, or pick up a boulder and throw it a mile, or do some cool stuff like that, I could see myself doing that. Just, wanting to, hey, what happens if I punch this tree? Oh, that was cool. I knocked over a tree. And there would be an addiction to it. There would be kind of that's kind of neat. Oh, I could just knock this one building over. I could just lift up this one car. And you get that just one more. And next thing you know, you're regularly doing it. You're regularly hooked on it. So, yeah, I say I wouldn't do it, but I know me in the back of my head. I'm like, you probably would, Jim.
Well, here's the funny thing, because you mentioned before, I'm the guy that would only hover 10 feet above the ground, but you're still hovering 10 feet above the ground.
Yeah.
I'm with you. There'd be that part of me where I'm like, okay, how much do I trust that these things aren't going to give out partway through flight. But you know what's going to happen. You hover 10 feet above the ground and you get comfortable with that. That turns into 12 feet. 12 feet turns into 15 feet. Then maybe you're flying up to the roof of your house. Yeah, there comes a point in time where you're going to just try different feats and start to become more confident. And then there comes, I don't know, you're hovering 10 feet above the ground and maybe you do that once and you take those things off. But then what happens when you have that day where you're like, well, maybe if I just tried them on for today, it'd be fun to do it again, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be, I don't know. It's funny how it's different for me than Thunder Agents. And I adore Thunder Agents. But I think that's a constant nonstop tragedy. Whereas Wonder Girl is a tragedy, but I think there's something about her being surrounded by the Teen Titans that's making me kind of go, well, that'd be kind of fun. Hanging out with Superboy and Robin and stuff like that. And I don't know. So there is that part of me, and that's where I'm starting to connect with her. It's that aspect of the whole thing. I get why she continues to do it, even though. And that's something that I'm finding enjoyable. I do think our Cassie's in there. We're gradually getting her. But I'm with you. It's a slow build to her. I'm not with her where I'm at with Kid Flash. Kid Flash, I'm completely intrigued by.
Yeah.
But I think that's okay with this book. I love that I was intrigued by Red Robin. Then I've become gradually intrigued by Kid Flash. The Superboy crossover's been fantastic. I'm starting to really enjoy characters like Skitter and Bunker, but yet they're characters I'm just getting to know right now. So I think they're really delivering a book where over time I'm starting to get hooked on each character as they're going along. With a team book, it's really important that you have one or two people that you're identifying with, I think, right away. It's okay to get to know the team along the way then, as long as you've got those characters that are reeling you back in like a fish on a hook. So I don't know. That's something that I just think for me is, I think, been very well crafted in the Titans universe.
Yeah, they're definitely playing for the long ball. They're not. This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. But along the way, they're giving us some cool action. They're giving us some cool stories. This is a very nice balance of action, adventure, story development, action, character development. Let's throw a little bit of swerve in there. Bam, surprise. And that, I think, is just hats off to all of these creative teams, because we're still getting that. We're not. It's funny when I look back at the Teen Titans, 9 issues. I'm pressed to find a moment where I'm like, why did they put that in there? I think, is a good thing, a really good thing for a relaunch of a title, especially one that was so high in my read list. Was so I was very close to and very tight and very protective of Teen Titans, and for me to sit back and say, okay, yeah, these 9 issues. I'm not seeing any wasted time. I'm not seeing any filler. I'm seeing throughout from A to B of development and character and thought into this universe. So what's important to me is also important to these creative teams, and that is a nice thing for me.
One of the things with the Titans that I think has been working is, and it's something that's true of my favorite Titans runs going back, I think at the core they've got the Titans down. What makes a Titans book really good. But then they're also not trying to be somebody else's run of Titans. And I think that's been a real key to my enjoyment of, why do I think the Jeff Johns run is as interesting as the Wolfman and Perez run? Well, because in both of those runs, they weren't trying to be somebody else's book. They were doing their own thing that fit that time with those characters. I think that's something we're seeing with this book. It's a Titans book. It's feeling, as each character is really getting focused on, feeling much more like Titans to me. Yet at the same time, it doesn't feel like they're trying to copy somebody else's run. They're still doing their own thing. And I think it's just a great way of handling it. This is a book, I'm with you. There doesn't seem to be like a wasted moment anywhere in it. And even those characters that I'm not quite as into yet, I'm finding, because of what you're saying and because those moments are important, that I'm enjoying getting to be fed little bits and pieces along the way with the characters. And that's really critical to keep me coming back for more and reading. I don't feel like I'm wasting any time when my favorite characters aren't on panel. And that's a great thing about the book.
Oh, definite. Yeah, definite. Now, one thing I was thinking about, because when we go through the whole culling and just, did the Teen Titans, did the Legion of Lost, did they actually win, or did Harvest win? Because part of the cool things with him is where he's claiming, even though he quote-unquote lost, he's still claiming victory. And he's still claiming this is how I had it planned. This is how I wanted this to go down. I've got my agents out there now. This is, Harvest wins. And even, Tim calls him out and says, no, you're just trying to put a spin doctor on this. And I do question whether there is an actual spin. Is this over? Is this, just the beginning? Is there going to be a second part to Harvest's great plan? And being he is a future guy, being he did, this is a master manipulation on his part from the beginning up until now. Is this a bluff? And I don't think so.
I agree with you that I think he gave up the battle to win the war. I think he did that on purpose. So I think that in his mind, he has won the war. It was okay to lose the battle. It's going to be interesting to see moving forward, though, because he's set up a scenario in a world, in a vision that he has for it. That doesn't mean that it's going to go that way. I loved his whole commentary on this virus or this outbreak that the Legion was there for, and how it's mutated to the point anymore where that's not really a threat on the level that they thought it was, that they were brought here for something else.
Yeah.
I didn't see that storyline going that way. And that was something that I really greatly enjoyed. I want to make one other comment, too, because I want to make sure I don't forget to say this. I was looking back at the whole Kid Flash and Timberwolf sequence, and it really was Tellus that stopped Timberwolf. It looks like maybe he even altered his mind or kind of pushed him to think differently about Kid Flash. It makes me wonder, was Kid Flash sent here from the future, either as a punishment or as a solution to the problem of him from the future, given a new life and a blank slate? And if so, does Tellus know who did it and why?
Maybe Tellus did it.
Yeah.
Because he is the lead. Well, he and Saturn Girl are the Legion's telepaths and the mind people. So it's one of two people probably who would do any altering and or augmentation of memories.
Did he do to Kid Flash what he just did to Timberwolf in this, but on a deeper, higher level?
Possible. See, I took that sequence as more of him knocking him out and not twisting or changing anything.
Well, I think at some point there was a clarification of what's really going on with Kid Flash, though, because Timberwolf clearly didn't know there.
Right.
Later on, when they do encounter each other again, Timberwolf is having a very different reaction to him.
True. Okay, yeah, actually, yeah.
And it may be just as simple as he was knocked out, but then was told what happened.
Back off, but right. Let's be honest, Timberwolf. If he's not a crazy animal, but he is a passionate person. So I do find it hard to believe that he would do such a 180 without a push in the right direction. Because, even if he was like, okay, I'm not going to kill Kid Flash, I'm not going to kill him for what he did, there still would be a level, there would be a cold shoulder, there would be I'm not turning my back to this guy type of attitude. And we're not seeing that in follow-up meetings, so there could be some adjustments. I wasn't thinking that before, but I don't know. I'm looking and I'm like, I can't say no. And to be honest, that's something that could cause, because we've seen what happens when you start tweaking minds and start tweaking your teammates' reactions on how they deal with things. Because that happened, with the whole Batman and with Dr. Light and everything that happened there. So this could be another little outcrop that Legion Lost has to deal with.
Yeah, so I don't know what has happened there. So, and that's something I think we're not going to know until the time is right. But that goes back to a lot of that mystery and twist and turn you're talking about in Legion that's so great. That's what I really loved about these titles intersecting. When they did, I thought the flavor of both books and both teams meshed very well together, and the stories of both teams were furthered in this. I didn't feel like any team was like in a holding pattern, like, oh, they're just a part of this crossover and this is a fill-in issue, if that makes sense. And then when the crossover's over, we're going to drop them back in their status quo, and it's going to be like this event never happened. That was nothing that happened in this story that felt like that to me. And that was something I really, really enjoyed in how this was put together, was that nothing really felt like it was forced and that these characters didn't belong, which sometimes happens with crossovers.
Now, something I wonder, what happened to Skitter?
Well, that's coming out of this. We don't know.
Yeah, because that was something I'm trying to figure out what exactly happened to her. When did she disappear? When did she kind of deviate from the story?
And I don't know. That was something that we didn't quite have the story of in this. I kind of like that. I like that there is storytelling coming out of this that we don't know about yet. So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know on that. Does that bother you, like coming out of this not knowing where that character is? To me, that gets me excited to now, okay, in Titans, I want to follow further from this.
It doesn't bother me because it's been acknowledged by the other characters. Mm-hmm. You know, because there was that one scene where Bart ran the Crucible half a dozen times, and he's like, I haven't found her. I don't know where Skidder is. And they even make reference to it. We can't find Skidder. We can't leave her behind. And so there's been reference made that she's not there, that they don't know where she is. And so I don't have a problem with it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, where is she? What the heck? You know, and it's made me go through and reread a couple times trying to figure out who is this mystery person that, you know, he's like, hey, take my hand. You know, who's that person?
One of the things I really enjoyed in this was a great mix of DC characters or DC, you know, teen characters from the past that haven't been introduced yet that were part of this crossover, but also the Wildstorm characters that are being organically brought in, like Gen 13, characters like Warblade. These are characters who I'm familiar with Wildstorm. We read a number of Gen 13 issues that we talked about on the show. Big fans of Gail Simone's run, but then we followed even beyond that and really enjoyed that. It's nice to see these characters brought in a way that makes sense for DC. I really like these Wildstorm characters that they've been picking to bring a part of the DC universe. I think this is working really well. There are characters, it's funny, on our Facebook page, just because Brett Booth is involved in this, a lot of love is going on for his artwork on Backlash, which I loved. So I love hearing, you know, listeners saying the same thing, that this is a character. I would love to see a Backlash introduced. And I know you don't know who Backlash is. You know the female Backlash, I think, from when we were reading some of the Wildstorm stuff.
Yeah.
But the original Backlash from the Wildstorm universe, the character I really adored. I'd love to see that character introduced in some way, if it makes sense, into the DC universe, just because I want to see that character again. I just think it's a great character. And it's great to see Brett Booth's artwork on this Teen Titans book. I think this has been a book, and Superboy and Legion Lost, I've loved the artwork on all of these titles. I think it's been really terrific art that I think have just matched these teen series, and they're very pretty, visually, books.
And they work well together. Different creative teams whose art styles aren't exactly carbon copies of each other, which you don't want, but they augment each other. They fit together. When you read part 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're not jarred by dramatically different art styles. You get a nice flow through. You recognize, okay, yeah, this is the same person here, same person here, same person here. It's a comfort levels. And that's another thing that you got to make sure you have in a good, crossover like this. There's no dramatic shifts. There's no dramatic changes. They could actually very easily, for my opinion, hardbound all these different titles, throw them together in one giant collected edition, and I could read from point A to point B and have no issue with the story that's being told visually or story wise.
Now, see, for me, I would recommend for anybody, if you picked up only your title that you were reading for the culling, I would recommend picking up the tie-in issues, the ones where they crossed over for it. I think it's worthwhile to have the other 2 issues, for example, or 3, depending if you weren't reading Teen Titans, for example, that would go into this crossover. I think it's worth it. I think that there is a point to those issues. I think that they do each spotlight both teams in ways that make sense. So you kind of want the whole story moving out of this, because it's great, because this does feel, again, like a crossover that's going to have impact for these characters in their books. I love Rose in this. Rose Wilson. I love her use. I love her being a villain. I don't know that she's going to stay that way or not, although I'm pretty convinced that she's going to be that way for a while, because she isn't afraid to really let go of some of her friendships previously, like with Caitlin Fairchild, which has been something I've really enjoyed. But her action sequences and how she plays out really plays out like the daughter of Deathstroke.
Yes.
And that's something that I thought was really, really great for her.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned her, and I'm laughing going, yeah, and we've been talking for probably an hour or so, and I didn't even bring her up, and she's been such a crucial part of the story for me, initially with the Superboy reactions, and then you see her with Caitlin, and then, throughout this title, throughout the culling, when she kind of, throws down and, doesn't hold back. And she is Rose. She is, the daughter of Deathstroke. And I loved seeing that. And again, she's another character that I don't completely know her power stream. I don't know exactly where she's coming from, what she has, what she can do, what she can't do. And I'm okay with the mystery because there's still that core character. There's still that Rose that I know, and I'm like, that I enjoy, is still there. So I'm all right with the mystery, with the unknown. She's another character. I want to see her play out. I like her as a hero, but seeing her as a villain is fun. And if she stays, on the villain side for a while longer, I'm not going to complain because we're getting a good, solid villain out of her.
One of the things I really enjoyed in this crossover was when the team split up in the final issue. Each squad handling a mission that made sense for I would say the skills of each team. Handing out a desperate mission that would hopefully stop Harvest and his plans for, or I'm guessing him. We don't really, I guess 100% know for sure, but I'm guessing him. I love that. I question. I'm like, I don't really know much of anything about Harvest, so I don't know that I could tell you much.
And we don't know male, female. All we do know is he said he's human. Mm-hmm. So where's the power coming from, and what is his quote-unquote definition of human? Is he augmented human? Is he pure 100% human and it's all body armor? Or what is, Harvest? Where does he come from? What's his power base? We had this really great villain that we never had the villain backstory on. Mm-hmm. And it's not even something I feel cheated or anything. I'm fine with it because this was a great villain. This is a great story. And I'm already thinking, when's it going to be the next appearance of Harvest? Because he's not done yet. But which title is he going to appear in? Because he's laid down solid groundworks for all of these titles. He could make an appearance back in any one of them, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And it's strong, powerful villain makes strong, powerful heroes.
I really liked Ridge. I liked in this series how we got to see Ridge be a part of the Ravagers, and then the treatment of Ridge, and what would lead Ridge to kind of look back at Caitlin Fairchild when kind of watching from a distance, starts looking and going, this is somebody who always treated me good and with respect. This is somebody who clearly did not. Who should I side with? And that was something I really liked because that felt really good. And I loved, the reverence of calling Dr. Fairchild. I remember what you did for me. I remember how you treated me. I'm sticking with you. That kind of loyalty being built in a chaotic situation just makes sense. Go with, the friend that you know instead of the potential threat to your own life that you don't. And it really is clear, I think, as the story goes on, that even those that win the quote-unquote culling don't necessarily live as long as a normal human would, aren't protected the way that even a normal human would try to protect themselves. They're expendable still. And I don't know, it was something that I really enjoyed about how this was handled.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Ravagers. This is, we touched on it a little bit, but just the build-up and the growth and the birth out of this event. It was one of those titles that I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a read through when they first started talking about it. I'm like, it'd be kind of neat, interesting, another, this kind of genre superhero team. Sure, let's go with it. Now I'm excited for it. Now I've gotten my groundwork for it. I've gotten the base of it. So the characters that I had no idea who they were, well, now I have a comfort with them. I have an understanding with them. I know where this is going to go. I know where this is going to go, but I know it's not going to go exactly how I'm thinking. So it's, you have that openness, that kind of, where the mystery of the future, looking forward to. And that's another title. It's on the list, and I'm glad it's there, and I'm excited to read the title.
One of the team-ups that I really enjoyed, the sequence with Superboy and Wonder Girl with the lariat and the TK powers.
Yeah,
I loved seeing how that worked out, where independently of each other, they were both surviving Harvest. Together, the two of them were able to use their formidable powers in a way that Harvest didn't see coming in order to focus the TK using the lasso. I just thought that was a really cool maneuver. And again, one of those parts where, for me, I'm starting to see a Wonder Girl that is making sense to me. A Wonder Girl that I've loved in the past. But it's been a gradual build to starting to see glimpses of that character. And now I think the payoffs are starting to happen. And I think it's going to be through the relationship with Superboy that we get to know her more, I think.
Yeah, I can see that coming about that way. And I do agree with you. She had some really cool, butt kicking moments. So there's definitely is that the fighter, the warrior that I enjoyed. It's just the personal side is where I want to see that. I want to see the emotion. And and you probably are right. Maybe it is going to be Superboy that brings that out, because as she maybe will pull out some of his personality, he'll start pulling out hers. It'll be one of those kind of mutual warrior moments where they're both uncomfortable with the personal side. They're okay with punching things and hitting things and doing that type of the physical side, but they're not comfortable with the emotional side. And I could see that the joint uncomfortableness that they would have would kind of work together with each other, and it would kind of encourage each other. So there's a definite possibility of that going somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this has been a great book about developing characters, developing relationships, and there's a lot that has potential to go somewhere in this. That's one of the things I like. I don't feel like everything's been dumped into one character relationship, dumped into one hat. I think there's a lot of big storylines going on right now that are starting to gradually pay off, and ones that are slowly building. Friendships and relationships that are slowly building. Characters that we're slowly getting to know. And that's something that I think is really important. If you're going to push a new team on people who've been reading it for years, you're going to wipe that slate clean. You're going to want to gradually, while you're building confidence, just check in, touch base. And that's stuff that I think is really important. I don't know. This series has been doing so much so well. I actually say all three series have been doing so much so well that was something that I really respected out of all this. When Harvest left, that was interesting, because I agree with you. I don't know that things are cut and dry in all this. And it's funny how you mentioned what's going to happen with Legion, that obviously when they go through that time bubble, that's not going to go very well. But neither did it for the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans pop up,
Mystery Island?
Mystery Island, or what's the Warlord's world?
Well, they said it's the next issue says The Mystery of Mystery Island.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that's the next issue blurb.
Alrighty. Well, I probably should have read that or remembered that, because I was thinking, because whenever there's dinosaurs or something like that involved, I always think Warlord. So, but I can't Scarterra.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm not thinking that.
Well, if they say Mystery of Mystery Island, that's a pretty good indication that they're going to go with Mystery Island on this one. Yeah, I know.
Captain Obvious.
Thank you.
But I don't know. I've really enjoyed all three of these titles going forward. And that does make me, when you're introducing a new title like Ravagers, I think it's really important that you leave these books in a really good place afterwards, because I do think that is a way that people who maybe weren't considering trying Ravagers, I would be really curious of that. Out of this crossover, is there anyone that's picking up or planning to try anything that they weren't reading previously when the crossover started? Because I'm always curious about that. Because crossovers for me do work that way, where I will, if I'm digging a character, if there's somebody I wasn't reading before, that serves as a way for me to start reading or trying that book. How long I stay with that book does depend on the quality of the book and my own financial situation. And that's always been the case from when I was a little kid to present day. And not even just a financial situation, my own reading time. Is the new book one that I'm going to stockpile? Or is it a book that I'm going to read right when it comes out or close to when it comes out, so I don't start building up a pile of it? And that's something that decides whether or not I end up keeping that book or not. And I do think if it's a top quality title, I do wind up keeping reading it because, I'm already on board. I'm excited for the directions of all these books, though. I'm already reading all of them, too. You alluded to that earlier for yourself. So it's really hard for me to comment on that. I would love to know from anybody if any of these books are ones that you weren't reading before and you decided to pick them up based on a crossover. Because I think that's an important role of a crossover. I know sometimes as fans it's I guess, taboo for us to admit that there is a business side to comics. But whenever you do a crossover, there is a point of turning people on to characters that they were not previously reading or enjoying. So did you find that for yourself? And that's something that I think that's a sign of a home run from the event. If you're trying something that you weren't reading previously. So, I don't know, good event.
Oh, definitely good event.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
I want to make sure to play this on the show. I'm a big fan of the Hero Initiative, and I love that X from Alt3red Egos and Darrell Taylor are doing this. It's a cool thing they're doing for New York Comic Con. I encourage you to listen to this, and not only, maybe go after some of the weight loss goals that they're doing, but also I love their supporting of the Hero Initiative. I think it's just a great program. If you haven't checked it, it's heroinitiative.org. Amazing site, but definitely support these guys and what they're doing. I think it's super cool, so I wanted to air this one and make sure just to get the word out on what they're doing.
This is X from Alt3red Egos, and right about now I go about 320 pounds at 5 feet 6 inches tall, which is way too short to be so big. So how am I going to lose the weight? The New York Comic Con. That's right. I spoke with Darrell Taylor from DC Noise and the Taylor Network, and I asked him why not have a 4-month competition to see who can lose the biggest percentage of body weight. At the end of the 4 months, we'll weigh in at the New York Comic Con on October 12th and see who's the winner. The loser will donate $50 in the name of the winner's podcast to the Hero Initiative, which is a wonderful charitable organization that helps out our past comic creators that are a little down on their luck or could use a little bit of assistance. Check them out at www.heroinitiative.org. So, we're going to do the official weigh-in on June 12th. Now, Darrell and I want to ask, do you want in? If any of the listeners or other podcasts want to get involved, you can drop me a line at x@alt3redegos.com. That's ALT, the number 3, REDEGOS.com. Or you can always check us out at our forums. You can go to the Alt3red Egos website and click on forum, or you can go direct to forumforgeeks.com. In there, there'll be a folder for Alt3red Egos and then a thread that says Becoming Less of a Man for Your Heroes. So, you have a couple of weeks to live it up before you go on to your 4 months of pain. So anybody that wants to be involved and become less of a man, just check us out and let us know.
I want to quickly shout out the Denver Comic Con. The Denver Comic Con is actually the fundraising arm of a nonprofit group called the Comic Book Classroom. And this is an after-school program for 5th through 8th graders that teach literacy and arts education through comic books. And it's dedicated to educating at-risk and underserved students through teaching the basics of the craft, starting with the elements of structure and storytelling. I don't know. I just think it's really cool for myself. I'm an educator. I love seeing this. It seems in the last few years in particular, there's been this really big boom and push to bring more comic books to schools. And I don't know, growing up, for me, comic books were a great gateway avenue into all kinds of reading and a concept of writing and storytelling. And I think it's something that's really important for children to be exposed to. So I think it's really cool that this program's available. The Denver Comic Con is running from June 15th to the 17th at the Colorado Convention Center. Great guest lists. Amy Reeder's going to be there. Gail Simone's going to be there. Michael Allred's going to be there. Jason Aaron's going to be there. Laura Allred. You can keep going through the list. Those are just some DC guests. Mike Grell, is going to be there. I mean, it's a great guest list. Peter Gross from The Unwritten. It's just a really great lineup of guests that are going to be there. There's celebrity guests, literary guests, comic guests. It's everything you can imagine from a comic convention. This one I'm not going to be able to attend myself, but if anyone's going to attend and would like to kind of give us some feedback on one of our episodes, I would love to chat with somebody who's been at the con, just their experience there. This is one I really wish I was able to go to, and I can't hit this one this year. So I wanted to shout it out, though, because I think it's a super cool con. It's denvercomiccon.com, and for the Comic Book Classroom, it's comicbookclassroom.com, and both of those links will be in the show notes. I just think it's a really cool event, and I just wanted to shout it out.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. You're ready to move up.
Jim, I wanted to start talking a little bit more about Night of the Owls and taking a look at some of the books that are connecting to this story. I actually think before we get started, essential reading for this, in my eyes, you have to be reading Batman. I think if you're reading any of the other titles that kind of link into it or echo it, for example, if you're a Red Hood and the Outlaws reader and you're not reading Batman as a regular title, I would recommend, at least while this Night of the Owls crossover is going on, to be reading the Batman title. I think you can get away with not reading it, but I think in order to get a full benefit and impact of what the major story is that Red Hood is involved in right now, you have to be reading Batman. I think any of the other titles, I would give the same recommendation. Everything from Batgirl to Detective Comics to Nightwing, any of the titles, Birds of Prey, you have to be reading, I think, Batman to understand the Night of the Owl's story. And the rest of these, I think, are doing a terrific job of giving us kind of the perspective of these characters in relation to this event, how it's kind of spun out of it. But I do think Batman's essential reading. Like, I don't think you can be without that particular title if you want to understand the Night of the Owls.
Yeah, the whole thing, what it is, what it's about, where it's coming from, and whatnot.
Otherwise, you have to really look at the issue, I think, of the book that you're reading as there's this big event going on in Batman. Batman's being attacked by the Court of Owls. Because of these characters' relationships with Batman, they're being pulled into it. So you're kind of, I guess, I will caution myself on saying that. I guess if you're only a Red Hood and the Outlaws reader, you're going to be seeing what's going on with the Night of the Owls from the perspective of the Red Hood, who, because of the fact that he's not a running buddy with Batman, so to speak, he only knows that Batman's going through some major crisis. These Talons are attacking all kinds of major figures all around Gotham, and Red Hood's being pulled into it. I guess the limited amount of information you'd have as a reader is also the limited amount of information that Red Hood has. And the same could be said for a Batgirl, a Nightwing. Nightwing, I guess, is a little bit more in the know than everybody else. But I think, for those type of titles, Birds of Prey, those are characters who wouldn't know every little detail of what's going on in this event. I guess you could get away with reading your book and just understand that the things that you don't know are the same thing that your main character doesn't know in the event. Was that fair, do you think?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. This is a major event, and just like how when we talked about the Cullen, there's an overarching story, and within Red Hood, we're getting a pretty good indication on what's going on. If you're only reading this, there's going to be some gaps in the story just because you're only seeing one piece of this massive story from that hero's perspective, from that title's perspective, and to be honest, I kind of like that. I kind of like having the in the dark and the fact that he doesn't know everything going on. And as the mission is progressing, he's learning and he's improvising and adapting along the way.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the way that it's all working out. And I actually like one difference from this and from the Culling, at least from my standpoint, is with the Culling, it's 3 books, that cross directly over into each other. With this, the main story's going on in Batman. There's so many titles that are being touched by this that I really like that if you want to be a part of Night of the Owls, if you're just reading Batman and then your main book, you're in the know for Night of the Owls. So let's say you're only reading one of the other titles and you're not a regular Batman reader. You can really read Night of the Owls there and get a grasp of what's going on in this situation. I do think you can get away with reading the book with your character in it, but I think you're not really going to understand what's actually happening to Batman unless you're reading Batman. But that's really the only Batman book you need to read is Batman.
Yeah. Well, the other ones are telling a different facet of the story from that point of view. Batman and Robin had a great Robin story. Detective had another variation on what's going on in the Batman, but the main the main courts and Night of Owls, all that was playing out in Batman. So that's kind of your guide.
One of the things I really liked, I'm looking at Red Hood and the Outlaws #9. One of the things I really liked about this is it really has been a continuing exploration of the emotional turmoil that Jason goes through with regard to Batman. And the emotional turmoil that Jason goes through with the fact that this is a guy that was Robin. There is a good guy in there. And I think sometimes when he's just portrayed as a villain, you lose that aspect of Jason. And I don't think it's ever really a good portrayal of Jason to portray him solely as a villain. I think you need to portray the duality of him, very bitter over, imagine you died and came back. The one person you were closest to, your father figure, the one who took you in, didn't avenge you. He sold you on this lifestyle of being Robin and being his ward. He did not avenge you, at least in your eyes. What would that do to somebody? I like that there's that exploration, but I love that it's not as simple as I like the idea that he's messed with Batman as wanting to get back at him. But I do think there has to come a point where that just isn't enough for him anymore. Like, you can't revolve your life around, and we're seeing that now. I think we're seeing a Jason who's not just revolving his life around messing with Batman. He's trying to find his own place in the world. That led him to, in many ways, kindred spirits who are all disenfranchised from their respective worlds. You know, Corey, in her own way, is not a part of our world, not a part of her world. We've got the same thing with Roy, who's not really much a part of the old world that he was a part of. So these are people who are kindred spirits, they're lost souls, and they seem to, in connecting together, have found an inner confidence in themselves that continues to grow issue after issue, where these are characters in many ways that are balancing each other out, like helping them to become more well-rounded people. This really is what, and I've said this before on the show, this is what I was hoping was going to happen with Red Hood in Countdown, when we saw him traveling with Wonder Girl, for example. I was hoping that the relationship that was going on there and the traveling team that was going on, the three of them that were traveling together there, would in some ways help him to become more of a part of a world outside of just being bitter with Batman. This, I think, this is really what I wanted to see all along from all that. I don't know, are you getting that vibe? I know you were a huge fan of him during that time. Is this more of the direction you wanted for him?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, I really do dig. He's another character that I dig as a villain, but I also want to see him become a hero. But his path back to being a hero isn't going to be cut and dry as everyone else. He does need to skate that line. He does need to be able to take the kill shot, because just where he is, where he was, where he's going, his direction, he's crossed that line already. He'll never be able to cross back and become a squeaky clean, no-kill code hero. He is going to always have that one little piece in his arsenal, that one little bit that he's willing to go to. And it's kind of funny, because a lot of stuff I see in Damian, where Damian was raised as the assassin, where Damian's actually killed. And Damian's killed as Robin. And Bruce is the constant fight with him not to have him completely go across the line, to be someone who could just as easily go to the kill shot, as Jason Todd can. And it's, in a way, I see sort of that fatherly struggle that he lost with Jason Todd, where he's not going to give up on Damian. He's going to keep Damian to the path. He's going to keep Damian to the code of the Bat, whereas Jason is now lost. He can't cross back to the code. He can be a good guy, and he can do the right thing, and maybe even he can go forward and never, kill again, but there will always be that one piece in his arsenal. Tim Drake, Dick Grayson, neither one of them, they do not have the kill shot in their arsenal. Could they do it? Of course. They're trained, they're talented, they can do it, but that's not a comfortable piece in their arsenal. In Jason Todd's arsenal, killing is a comfortable piece. It is a part of him. And I do enjoy seeing that dark side to him. I do enjoy seeing that duality of the character. And these scenes when he's dealing with Gotham is just absolutely wonderful, because he's a bit gruff with Roy and, Corey, and they're noticing it. It's like, hey, is this always how he acts when he's responding to Batman? Yeah, kind of. And it's that whole recognition amongst them. And it's that, as you said, that growth of a team that's coming on with these three has been a fun experience.
See, I'm going to say a little bit of that, but there's also that part of he's home, and he likes being home. Like, he gets that same thrill and rush from Gotham that Batman does. And the moment where he's diving down, he wants to be alone with Gotham. Like, that moment there is a comfort and a being home that I think a lot of times gets forgotten with him. See, this, I think, is an important duality with him that you need to have. This is a guy who, when he was Robin, did like being Robin and did like being a part of this world. And this is something that there would be a nostalgia for him to have. So it isn't just him being gruff. I think there's something else there, too, that he doesn't want to admit. he doesn't want to admit that he actually likes being home. But his internal dialogue gives that away.
You know, it's funny. I just thought of something. Remember back when we did Nightfall?
Yeah.
You know, and with Bruce retraining himself and becoming back to, you know, the return of, you know, Batman. He had that one part of Gotham where, you know, he had to jump off of, and it wasn't ready yet. He wasn't ready yet. Right in this scene where Jason does the big leap, it's that same type of feeling to it, that same type of comfort level as to who he is. And it just dawned on me now as you're mentioning that.
And am I ready to allow myself to feel those things again?
Yeah.
You know, can I do that without betraying the fact that I'm mad at Batman and things like that? I mean, you know, it's an interesting thing. And see, I find him far more interesting like this than I do with just the hatred for Batman. I think it's too one-dimensional. I think this is more how I see Jason and where I find him the most interesting. Because it's not all is forgiven, but yet there is a guy in there. You know, he's going after Victor Fries and really trying to stop the Court of Owls here from killing Victor Fries. And I love that. I just think it's something like if you had told him 6 months earlier that he'd be doing this, he would have laughed and said there's no way. But in the moment, when it was really there's a reality of the whole thing versus it being a what if, he reacts instinctively. And there is that part of him. And I don't think that's something that just because of everything that he went through, and not just because I'm not like belittling what he went through, but I don't think you can take that part of your core. Because a lot of who the Red Hood is who Jason was as Robin too. You know, a lot of the times when he was brash and all that. A lot of the behavior and the way he's talking to Corey and Roy is a lot of the ways he would talk at times as Robin. Mm-hmm. So there is elements of that. Not all of this is because he died. You know, some of this stuff is really at his core part of who he was prior to that as well. And I think that's just an interesting exploration in this series and why this book is rising up the stack at being another one of my favorites, which is really funny considering the way the book started. And it's not just Jason. I do think, you know, now that we know Corey's not a one-trick pony, you know, there's a lot more depth to what's going on with her as well. And that what she tells us, or what she tells them, is not necessarily the whole entire truth as well. And everything that's going on with Roy, the more that this series has gone on, and that these characters have these other facets to them that they're gradually exploring in this series, this has become a must-read book for me. It really has, in a way that the first issue didn't make it seem like it was going to be this level. And I love that but I wouldn't change the first issue now that I see where it's gone.
Yeah, the path getting here makes the journey worthwhile. And these are, when we first started talking about this, we're like 2 out of 3. We're like, you know, there's one character like, I don't know about the other 2. I'm liking, and I'm now saying I got a solid 3 out of 3. This is a great team dynamic. It's different than the other books. These are, you know, damaged goods when you look in the superhero universe, but they're damaged goods that work well together, that, you know, they find strength in each other. But on the other side, I am thinking there at any given moment, one of these 3 could possibly lose it, could possibly have a situation that's not too favorable to the other ones. And how are they going to react to that? Whether it's, you know, dealing with aliens, dealing with Batman situations, or dealing with Roy's own inner demons that he really hasn't completely expunged yet. He hasn't completely let it out and hasn't completely confronted them. Maybe he's more of a dancing and hiding and not facing them. And so there's, at any given time, this team could very easily implode. And you know when that starts happening, that's, I think, when the real interesting story will begin.
But I think we're seeing now. See, I don't know that I'm going to see that. And I think one of the reasons why, and I think where it remains interesting for me, is because it's 3 people and not 2. Unless both partners are unless 2 of the 3 partners are going through turmoil at the same time, like you're mentioning, separate turmoil, you've always got that one person to help. Like, look what Jason's going through here. Corey doesn't understand. Roy does. And Roy's helping her to kind of get it. because he sees it from a little bit of a different perspective. His relationship with Jason's going to be a little different than hers. His relationship with this type of situation, being the sidekick and the former mentor and that type of thing, is a little different. He doesn't quite get everything, obviously, that Jason went through, but he understands having demons that you're facing and stuff like that, and how Jason just needs this moment. Roy wants to be there for Jason and knows, see, one of the things I love, he knows how far back to stay. You know, Jason says, no, this is family business, let me handle it. Roy respects that to a certain extent. And I love that we see later that he steps in when the time is right. He monitors from afar, is there for support and backup when needed, but literally will stay and watch as long as it's necessary to let Jason work through this on his own. But, again, he's got his buddy's back. And I think that, you know, the way that Roy reacts to this is very different than the way Corey reacts to it. But if the situations were reversed and it was something Roy was going through and maybe Jason wasn't getting it, maybe there's a compassionate side to Corey that is going to see things a little differently than Jason might. And she might be the one to support Roy and help Jason to maybe better understand Roy, if that makes sense. I think that's why these three, I think, are so interesting together, because each one is a very unique, very different entity from the other. And I think that's something that I'm really enjoying from this book, and why I don't see them necessarily imploding, unless all three of them were being attacked at once, or two of them were being attacked at once, and there's only one left. And, you know, that might get overwhelming then. But as long as they've got two people on the outside of somebody's situation, like when you mentioned Corey dealing with space, well, then you've got Jason and Roy supporting each other, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Even if Corey's going through her own thing, they're each have a different relationship with Corey and a different understanding of Corey. And I do think that might be in a situation where maybe Jason, because he's known Corey a little bit longer, might be able to better ground Roy in that. I don't know. I think that it's going to be an interesting dynamic because there's three of them versus a partnership that would more easily implode.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, the imploding thing could very well happen, but I think that's only going to happen if they're fighting a multi-front warfare where, you know, each of them's being individually separated from the group. And I don't know. I think the funny part is 9 issues in. If you'd asked me in issue 1, I would have said, well, they could implode by issue 3. But now by issue 9, I guess I don't feel as confident that would happen to this group now. I have a lot more confidence in them.
Oh, definite. And it is the mystery and it is the unknown of the team still that does keep me excited about the next issue. You know, just the little teasers for the next issue of, you know, there's going to be some more stuff coming down the pipeline with Corey. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I want to see where this goes. This is going to be kind of interesting. And, you know, it just I did love seeing Jason respond to the call. You know, last issue, I was like, yes. When he intercepted the signal, when he heard that Alfred and said, we're going in, that was something that I did cheer about, because I do want to see him as a good guy, even though I enjoy him as a villain, but I do want to see him do the right thing for no reason, not for personal gain or even to mess with Batman. This was about doing the right thing. You know, he did the right thing his own way, his own style. And, you know, it's 100% Red Hood, but it was still a Bat family calling, and he answered. And, you know, we saw, you know, other variations of him and Tim Drake having breakfast and just, you know, hanging out and just chatting, you know, just having a civil conversation. It's, you know, stuff like that. It's the duality that is Jason Todd that makes this title, kept me in. And then when they really started working on Roy and started working on Corey, and when they really started just, you know, filling out the full cast, I was like, okay, now I have a solid story. Now I have something I really enjoy, the whole presence, not just one piece of it. And the Court of Owls, their connection to it, for me, was a really fascinating thing, because you think about all the bad villains. Victor Fries is going to be the best against the Court of Owls because the Talons are affected by cold. And I think if Jason hadn't shown up, I would have put even money that Freeze could have survived this. Now, granted, the city may not have survived it, and a lot of innocent lives would have been lost in the process of him defending himself, but Victor Fries would have made it out of this. And that was something that was kind of fascinating for me to see Jason recognized that there's a lot of innocent people, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage if Victor Freeze just goes about his own thing dealing with this, because he'll just freeze everybody, and that's what he does. Well, that may work, on one hand, but on the other hand, there's going to be a lot of innocent people dying. So Jason had to deal with this his way, and I thought I liked seeing that, the fact that Jason's recognizing there's more to this than just taking out the owls. I have to protect the surrounding citizenry.
I also like that Victor Freeze makes sense as far as with a lot of the stuff the owls are doing as far as, boxing and putting away the Talons. That his technology would be something that would be useful to them beyond, just the fact that it could be used as a weapon against them. It could also be used for a functional purpose for the court. To continue living on and having these soldiers ready to go when the time is right. I love the clues that, various people, we're going to talk about Jonah Hex in a little while, All-Star Western. But one of the things that I really liked is I loved Jason seeing the clues of the Talon. The acrobats, the location, that he was, okay, why is he going over to this area where Haley's Circus was? And why is this alley important to him? And look at the acrobatic moves. I can almost visualize him being a performer. These little clues that he put together, this is a guy that worked with Batman. And he would be trained to pick up on clues. And not just from working with Batman, from his training after that as well. So, I don't know, that was something I agree with you. I found this quite fascinating as it was going on. And I love that Jason starts connecting with what happened to the Talon. I understand coming back from death, and making connections with this person in a way saying, hey, look, I've been there, done that. I understand what you're going through. Is this really the path? And that was, I thought, two warriors in that moment meeting on a common ground was something that I don't think any of the other books are able to explore on that level. I love the way Batgirl did it with her opponent, but it was very different in what they connected over. In this case, they're connecting because they've been through a similar experience, and Jason can relate directly to what this warrior's gone through. And I love that. I loved how Batgirl handled it. I love how this book has handled it. And I think that's one of the great ways that this crossover is working, is that the main story's in Batman, right where you want it to be. You're not forcing everyone to pick up every single book. But if you're reading Batman and then you go read this, you're getting a great story featuring Red Hood that, yes, is you can see the connectability to what's going on in the big events in Batman, but then you've got a personalized experience where Red Hood now is being touched by these events in a way that Batman just won't be, because he hasn't been where Jason has. And I think that's really great choices by the creative teams in each of these books. The Damian experience was a lot different than the Jason experience. The Batgirl experience was a lot different. The Jonah Hex experience is a lot different. Nightwing's experience is going to be a lot different because there's a family connection to what's going on there, and he was all being groomed to be a Talon. These are all things that I'm just really digging about this whole event and the handling of these issues. And I really like and I prefer when events are handled this way, where you don't have to pick up everything. But if you are, you're getting cool stories like this where you're like, wow, I'm really glad they took the time to put out this issue, because it added something to the event for me that I'm already digging what's going over in Batman. They've got me sold. I think that's just a terrific title with everything that's going on right now. But I love how these other creators that are playing in this sandbox have really found a way to personalize their issues to their characters, to their supporting cast, and to the their connection to Gotham City and that world. I just really am digging this for that type of experience. And Red Hood and the Outlaws, I think, really just has been a home run in this event.
Oh God, yeah. And one of the things that got me, that I really kind of had this cool just revelation while I'm reading this, just how much of the original personality is still remaining within the Talons. Because we've seen a lot of very hardcore, dedicated killing machines. But we're also, in some of these side stories, seeing the personality of the individual Talon, that individual person that they were, still holding strong. And especially in this one, this Talon, he didn't want it to happen to him, really. you can see that he was just a kid who was taken away, and they had his body, but they never had my soul. And he wants to hold on to who he was, what he was, and it's a kind of it's a touching experience that it is Jason who's like, hey, I know what you mean, man. I've been there myself, and it makes me think and wonder what's going to happen after the court. Are we going to get talents still around that aren't connected to the court anymore? Are they going to go against the court, or go independent, go rogue, or even just go try to be free of this organization? What's going to happen tomorrow? This is the night of the Owls. Well, what's going to happen the next day? Where's this going to lead to? And that for me was something that it was kind of like, just these thought processes as I'm reading through all these different titles going, there's so much more to be told in this story outside of just this individual, just right now what's going on with the Knight and with the Court of Owls. There's another story. There's years worth of exploration that they could do with this, and they may never do, or they may do later on down the line, or in any of these other characters that they've introduced this concept to. They can always bring it back again. So I'm actually kind of excited, and I'm curious, and I want to see what's going on with this.
Did you catch the 1.21 gigawatts reference?
Yeah.
Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that when he took down Mr. Freeze. The other thing I want to shout out that I really enjoyed, again, I loved the Jason meeting with Tim Drake and how well that was handled. I thought equally well handled was Batgirl meeting with Jason. I love that it was different.
Yeah.
And the way Jason handled it and how there was an awkward nature to it, but yet he felt like he needed to do that, which was something I thought that was really interesting.
Well, she wouldn't have the same type of trust and or relationship that Tim would. You think about Tim Drake and his personality and who he is and what he's about. He would probably see Jason as the brother, the lost brother, the prodigal son. I can help him, I can reach him. I can, maybe I can be the one to help bring him back into the fold. Whereas Barbara would never have had any type of connection to him other than, he was Robin for a while, probably when she was injured, and then he became Red Hood and tried to kill everybody. I don't trust him. She wouldn't have that same level of trust that Tim would. And same thing with Grayson. I would think he would have that same type of, let me help you. Let me, be the brother for you. Let me, support, because they all have that common, that common badge of Robin. They all have that common burden that was being, the sidekick, the Batman. It's a really cool job to get, but there's also a price to pay for it. There's also something and it's something that only a fellow Robin would understand.
See, I don't think Dick would react the same way that Tim did. I think they're too different. And I mean that in a good way. I love the development of the characters. I thought the handling of Tim with him was spot on. I think the problem is I think Dick Grayson is a lot more intimidating for any of them to deal with because he was the first Robin. And as Nightwing, he's had all this success. And, he's the one that eventually became Batman. And there's just a different sort of relationship to Bruce that I think that's there. I don't know. To me, I think one of the things I love about the Batman world is I don't know that Jason could have the same kind of relationship with Dick Grayson that he did with Tim. I think Tim has there's a less intimidation there, less of a looking up to Big Brother. This is Little Brother, and I think there is a big distinction between those two relationships. A question I have for you. You brought up Damian. Here's my question. Do you think Damian opens up a doorway with how dark Damian is and the fact that Damian's killed and these things that have happened? Does that open a doorway to want to help Jason from Bruce? Or does that make Bruce more afraid to have Jason around because of the potential influence that Jason would be if he was brought back into the fold on Damian?
Good question. Good question.
Because I don't know that I have a cut and dry answer to that. It's something I'm thinking about what would Bruce do in that situation? Is that something he would even explore and entertain if the opportunity presented itself?
Well, you think about, first and foremost, Bruce, his primary, his primary goal would be the protection of Damian. And I could see him, I don't want to say passing off, but passing off Jason to other people to protect Damian. And I could see him choosing Damian over Jason just because, one, Damian is, yes, he's younger and he still has a possible future in a life. I think there's more potential to save Damian than Jason. But as I'm saying this, I can't see Bruce turning away Jason if Jason were to come to him saying, "Hey, help me, Bruce. I've lost my way." I can't see Bruce going, "No, you had your chance, leave." It would go against so much of the core that is Batman.
Help me, Bruce. You're my only hope. Help me, Bruce. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can't see Bruce turning. I can't see him turning away Jason, but it would be one of those things where it would be a decision that he would question and re-question over and over again. And it would be, they probably wouldn't even do it in a dialogue. It would just be the people around him, like Alfred and Dick and probably even Tim, would know that Bruce is questioning whether he should bring Jason into the mix, whether, what would happen to Damian. And I could actually, there would be some really cool stories being told with that, just because of the trust factor. Does he completely trust Jason Todd, around Damian, or is he worried that Jason's trying to get to Damian, or heck, is Damian trying to get to Jason? Because you never know with that little monster what he's planning. So there's a lot of different things they could do with that.
Yeah, I really love that part of this. That I agree with you. That there really is a lot of things that could be done in that situation. It's not very cut and dry. This book is a book that's become one that I've become very fond of. And you mentioned how different it is before. That's why. I really think the relationships, the damage that you mentioned with the characters, I don't think they're as damaged as they were in issue 1, though. It's funny how I do think one of the things that I've really enjoyed is gradually I feel like each one of them has helped the other in a way to maybe face things and open up about things that they wouldn't have otherwise, even if they do it internally. Like, I don't know that Jason would be in Gotham right now if he hadn't met up with these two. Not the way that he is, if that makes sense. Like, I think he would have come back. I don't know that he would have had the same conversation with Barbara if he hadn't gone where he's gone to with these two. And maybe I'm wrong there, I don't know. I feel like that there has been some form of evolution in the character.
Oh, definitely. There's been some change, and there's been some growth, and there's been just some personality or humanity, being instilled in Jason throughout these different adventures. But he still holds on to the core that is Red Hood. There is still a piece of him. There is still that solid being. I'm not reading this saying, "Oh, this isn't Jason." I completely see this as how I would imagine Jason would be, how a Red Hood story that I would want to read is what I'm getting through these. But there is definite growth and there is definite change over time, and it's, I don't, it's, yeah.
One of the books that I really enjoyed that have tied into this crossover, and I loved it because of the historical aspect of it, is All-Star Western number 9. Because we have Jonah Hex, he's been dealing with, first of all, he's traveling with Arkham, which I think is just terrific. I've loved the whole buddy relationship. Buddy is a very loose term for the relationship that's going on there with Arkham and Jonah Hex. But I love that along the way, like they're following this group August 7th, or August 7. And August 7, they had to bring the group out of hiding. They knew 3 of the members, I think. And in order to bring the rest of them out of hiding, they had to really make them think that they had gotten a one-up on Jonah Hex and Arkham. I love how they lured them in, and we get this great battle where Nighthawk and Cinnamon, who I love. I wonder if they're still considered Hawkman and Hawkgirl. because I guess I'm not sure how the Hawkman rules are working in the New 52. I think in Savage Hawkman recently, I've seen some glimmer of hope that maybe Nighthawk and Cinnamon still are.
Oh, I 100% say this is Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Especially with the medallions and everything. I guess I'm thinking that's the nth metal too. Is that where you're going?
Yeah. That was, and because you think about the properties, how it made him stronger, how it made him, heal better, and it kept him alive when he should have died, and there was all these different stuff with that's nth metal. It has to be, and yeah, I completely see this as being, the stories that the rebirth and whatnot that is the Hawk stories.
One of the things as this whole event was going on, we've got Thurston Moody, who is a major player in Gotham at this time, but obviously was working with the Court of Owls. The problem was he's not a member of the court, right? It seems like he has a relationship with them, and he said too much or hasn't really reacted the way the Owls wanted him to, which is why now he's a target for a Talon. Mm-hmm. I love how that's playing out here, because this isn't something where, because Jonah Hex is not present day, we're seeing historically how the Talons would have reacted in an earlier Gotham. And that's something you mentioned before, the stories that can be told, and just how you could have countless adventures with these characters. With the fact that you've got them throughout time, or at least, throughout Gotham's time, you have opportunities for moments like this in All-Star Western. And I thought this was really just a wonderful use of the Talon. To see a Jonah Hex dealing with this situation. And this would be something where I loved how Jonah needed the healing factor here. And Jonah had to find a way to overcome something that, without the modern day bat gadgets that we're seeing operated so prevalently in those books. I really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this book in general since the get-go. I was a big Jonah Hex fan prior to All-Star Western. To see him brought into a confrontation with the Talons, finding clues, him noticing the circus acrobat and pointing that out to Arkham, I thought was something that was absolutely terrific, because this is a bounty hunter. He's trained and needs to spot any possible clue that can lead him to his prey. His way of operating is going to be different than a Batman. Yet there are some similarities on the investigative levels that, Jonah's got the street smarts, and he's, traced down so many that he would notice clues that your average lawman in this time frame wouldn't notice. And I just really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. Sometimes with Jonah Hex, it comes off like, he's this gruff and rugged and tough and down and dirty. But there is times where you do see an intelligence to Jonah Hex that is often forgotten. And I love when you see these moments with him. He's not all that you always see when he's so damaged and battered and bruised and going into these suicide missions because he's Hex and he can.
He's not just, the blindly shooting them, kill them all, and move on to the next one. Drink a shot of whiskey. There is an actual style to him. There is an actual intelligence. And that, for me, was something that kind of really locked me into it. I was enjoying the cool action sequences. I was enjoying watching him kill a lot of people and get some really good high body counts going. But I do enjoy, there is an intelligence to it, and I do need that storytelling. I was completely swerved by the fact that that was all a setup. I'm just sitting there as I was reading last issue going, shut up, Arkham. Shut up. What are you doing? Don't talk, you idiot. I'm like, oh. And then when, they get captured and Hex is sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, what, Arkham, you idiot. I'm just sitting there yelling at the comic. And then even when this issue begins and, you start reading it, you see them all bound to gag and Hex turns the tables on them. Even until Arkham flat out said, this was the plan all along, I was thinking, okay, it's just Hex improvising. He's got to make do for what Arkham did. No, he planned for this. This was all part of the strategy. And I was like, I hit myself in the head going, you idiot, you should have seen it. But two, then I applauded the book because I was completely swerved.
You know what I liked about the handling of this? It didn't derail the current storyline at all.
No.
Like it fit into the current storyline in a way that it just, was like it was the way it was supposed to be. The story was meant to go here. This whole owls thing kind of faded in and out of it the way that it should, because these are creatures that are known to be stealthy and blend back into the environment. They don't want the public at large knowing that they're pulling the strings from behind the scenes. It's a secret society. In order to make it that way, the agent needs to vanish and disappear like they were never there. And that was something that I really enjoyed in the handling of this. Then we go back in to see Wayne, the Wayne at that time, and the leaders of Gotham meeting, talking about the direction that they're going in, and Tallulah Black showing up. And, now we're going into this whole situation where the bodyguard of one is going up against Tallulah Black, and this brings Jonah Hex into the situation. We've now completely gone away from the Owls and the Talons, stuff like that, and we're here into Jonah Hex and Tallulah Black now going after these guys, which I love. I love how this issue had so much going on, but none of it felt busy. The pacing, I thought, was really even-keeled. I think it totally fit the storyline that was being told there. I'm excited for the cliffhanger of Tallulah Black being back, because I absolutely adore that character. So I thought really a great handling of being a part of this event, which, is a geek for me. I'm enjoying this whole... I'm a Batman junkie. Love the whole Night of the Owls thing. I can't get enough. I love seeing that any of the books that are playing with this are doing it in a way that really benefits their book. And I don't know, it's just something that I really enjoyed seeing it here, and I appreciate Gray and Palmiotti for, saying, hey, first of all, it's a great way to bring some attention to All-Star Western. And please, I hope some of you who aren't reading this book picked up this and went back and started grabbing some of the issues, because you are missing a terrific, terrific book if you are not reading this. I can't give this book a higher recommendation. You talked about different before with Red Hood and the Outlaws. You can't get more different than All-Star Western. And it's consistent every single month in delivering a great butt-kicking story. And I will honestly go on a limb and say, if you're a Batman fan and you haven't given All-Star Western a try, I think there's a lot to love with Jonah Hex if you're a Batman fan. I think you can feel right at home with a character like this, and you're getting something that's different than a Batman story, but yet a character that I don't think it's out of the Batman fans' wheelhouse. I really think that there's something there to dig and to be into Jonah Hex if you're a Batman fan.
Now, with Hex and staying in Gotham for a little while, they haven't said when he's going to leave Gotham, but eventually he will go back to the West. Are you looking forward to that? Are you hoping for that, or is it... Where are you at with that? Because I'm personally, if he goes back to the West, that'll be cool. If he stays in Gotham for a while, I'm cool with that. Where are you sitting at with this?
Oh, I don't care. I think it's just a great book, and I think one of the things I've got confidence on with Grant and Palmiotti is that they're going to leave when it's time to leave. And that doesn't mean they can't come back. It's like right now we got Tallulah Black showing up, right? Well, this is a character that they've, it's been a Jonah Hex mainstay. Her story was so well delivered in the previous series, and to have her coming back now and to have these two interacting in Gotham, I think just fits. And I don't know, I'm in no rush for him to leave Gotham. On the other hand, if next month after the ending or the next issue, they were to say, we're kind of done with Gotham for now. I don't know. I think you can still. There's a lot of options. You can leave Arkham in Gotham. There's also reasons why Arkham might need to go with Hex, or might decide to go with Hex. I don't know what route they would go with that. I could see Hex going back to being a solo character again. I don't know. I just see a ton of options with this guy. I love Arkham kind of being our eyes into Hex's world. Like, we see Arkham interacting with people who know Hex in a way that Hex can't, and getting objective answers about Hex, like from Nighthawk and Cinnamon. I thought that was great. I think that Arkham, from a story standpoint, is serving a purpose of being the guy who can ask the questions we as readers all want to know the answers to. How do these people really feel about each other? Yeah. What's their relationship really like with Hex? What kind of things would they not say to Jonah Hex that they might say to an Arkham? I think that was something that is as a storytelling tool to freshen this book up. Not that it needed freshening up from the previous series, but for those of us that are read that entire Jonah Hex series, I think that is giving it a little bit of a different flavor and a little bit of a different approach. And I'm learning more about Jonah Hex through those moments. And I think that's just very well handled. And I think that's really, really a great use of Arkham. So am I in a rush for him to leave Gotham? No. I'm just really digging the book. And these are two writers that, quite frankly, they can take me on whatever ride they want to with Jonah Hex, because the last series was so good that I'm willing to, hang out in Gotham. They want to, if they want to have him sit in the middle of the desert for like 3 issues. I'm sure they're going to turn that into an interesting story. I don't know. It could be all dialogue with him just sitting there, and I guess I'm convinced that they're going to find a way to make that interesting. That says a lot about my feelings about Gran Palmiotti, I guess.
Yeah, you're holding back again. Yeah. You're not letting people know what you really think and what you feel, man. Let it out.
I like with Nighthawk and Cinnamon in that backup story. We see, Cinnamon went through some very, very tough things and saw the death of her father and has an opportunity to avenge it. And I love how initially she's ready to get revenge. Nighthawk is stopping her, saying, you don't want to do this. She gives in to him, but then when his life sort of becomes in danger, and I use that loosely, it almost gives her an out and a reason to do what she originally intended on doing and killing the one who changed her life so much so.
Yeah, I kind of took it as she didn't need to do that. He could have very easily gotten that gun back and he would have been fine. But she was given the opportunity and she took it. And in a way, I don't have an issue with what she did as a person. If given what she dealt with and where everything happened, and I'm like, hey, I call it justice. But when you look at the heroes, when you look at the hero code, and you look at what they're doing, she's dancing on a line that, or crossing over a line that could cause issues and could cause, ramifications down the line.
I really liked how the two of them, rode off together. They addressed it. They were talking about it. And he's made the decision to say, you know what? I need to move on from this, and I want to move on with you. There's something romantic about that. Recognizing her reasoning for doing this and just saying, I'm going to stick by you. I don't agree with your move. It's not what I would have done, but I'm going to stick by you. And I like that. I mean, I think that's that kind of compromise. There's something interesting about it. I mean, it's obviously a crazy thing to compromise about. She committed murder. But because clearly he could have gotten out himself. But I loved her justifications even on doing it.
And to be honest, I don't think, because we talked earlier about with Jason how he's got the kill shot in his arsenal. That action right there, I don't put it as her as being a killer. Yes, she killed, and yes, she was able to do it, but just going up against the next bad guy, I don't think that's going to be her first go-to.
Agreed.
She's not going to reach to the kill shot first. Now, we've seen her, and she will do it if she needs to, but and the next time he's in a situation where it's a struggle and she's not going to necessarily go for that kill shot. She's going to, go back to this circumstance and the fact that he really doesn't want her killing, and she's not going to take the shot, or she's going to shoot the wound, or she's going to shoot to disarm. She's going to do it she's going to handle the circumstances differently.
Yeah. And I guess it's funny in an Old West world, it's funny how my tolerance and flexibility of it is a lot different being the time period that they're in, if that makes sense. It's a more lawless place, and I think crossing and going to extremes is a lot more, or was a lot more forgivable during that time than it would be today. So I don't know. It's funny how there's a ton of wiggle room there, and I got to be honest with you. Anytime you've got Nighthawk and Cinnamon, and the opportunity for them to get together. I love that we saw the origin of her name in this storyline. These backups in All-Star Western are terrific. I'm hoping the extra page size, the extra size of the book, isn't shying people away from trying this book. Because I always get worried about that when there's a backup, because I love them. I think this book benefits from them.
Yeah, it's an extra $1. And I don't know, there's a lot of people who are like, hey, that matters. And yeah, you're getting an extra story in there, but my budget's tight. The budget's set and limited, and it's I get it and I understand. For me, this is a book that I wouldn't drop because I'm getting way too much enjoyment out of this book and getting way too much enjoyment out of the backup even. So but I understand people.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to it. I'm very protective of this particular title just because of my love for Jonah Hex. So, and the whole world. I love the other Western heroes that are being brought into all this. So, I don't know. I think this is a book that I can't recommend highly enough picking up All-Star Western if you haven't. I think it's just a cool book. It's always been a cool book. So, I just kind of wanted to shout this one out before we move on. Jim, as we continue looking at this Night of the Owls, I want to make sure that we do talk about as many titles as we can along the way. Just to it's a great way for us to retouch on some of these titles that we haven't talked about in the New 52 in a while. One of the ones I want to talk about, and actually one of the reasons why I said we should talk about it today, it came up on our Facebook group where the cover was mentioned. And I don't know about you, one of the things that I was really excited about, well, let me ask you this. Did you see that preview cover before reading this issue?
No.
Okay, I did. And what do you think I was thinking when I saw that cover?
Gonna see Tim Drake versus a Talon.
Right. And did you think that when you grabbed the issue to read it?
Oh, big time. Because even, before I read it, we talked about it, and you're like, hey, yeah, that Dark Knight came out. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll make sure I grabbed it. And sure enough, when I opened up the box, I was looking, I'm like, oh, cool, Tim's involved. And I started reading it. I'm like, Tim's not involved. What's going on here?
I think he only appears in like one or two panels, tops.
At the end of the book is when he appears.
So, I guess he does appear. But now, what I want to see, and one of the reasons why I was excited. Now, first of all, I want to say one thing. I enjoyed this issue. I will admit, I was initially disappointed because I'm looking forward to that story, and I want to see it at some point where we see Red Robin interacting with the Gotham heroes, so we can kind of see what's that relationship like. What's his relationship like with Bruce now? Because there's, I think, some things that I would just like clarified with him as far as what is the status quo in that relationship. But I will say I enjoyed this issue. I thought it was a good issue. It just wasn't what I expected because of the cover. And I saw the cover preview image a while ago, and it really built up a sense of anticipation for what I was expecting on the insides. And I want to say this, I think it's a beautiful cover. I really enjoy the cover. I love the interior artwork. I love the story. It's a good Judd Winnick story being told on the inside. So I'm not knocking any of that. It just wasn't what I expected with the cover. And go ahead, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
Well, part of me is thinking this is the setup for the next issue, and the next issue we're going to get Tim Drake's story. Because you think about how this one ends with the Talon hitting the sewers, and he's hard to kill, and someone's got to hunt him down. And I'm thinking that's when we're going to see Tim hunt him down.
See, I don't know. I guess I'm getting the impression with these issues because next one is Scarecrow Returns. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out. With him being in the sewers, it's a possibility, and I wouldn't mind that. If that's the case, I don't know. I guess I just really don't know what direction they're going in with that. Let's talk about the issue, though, and some of the events that happened in it, because first of all, I'd love to see what you mentioned there, and if that's the way it goes, I'm cool. I'm totally cool with that. This is the owl that ended up killing Lincoln March, and I really like seeing, for as many of these Talons, their history. When did they get if they were from Haley's Circus, which seems most of them are, when were they with Haley's Circus? What was their life like? What led them to become a Talon? Why did they feel that? Because it's interesting how so many of them speak with reverence of the opportunity to become a Talon and what being that person in that role meant to them. There's a sense of honor to being that weapon of the court, which is interesting, especially because you mentioned earlier they're having free will, they're having their memories, how so many of them do. It's funny how much they still hold with reverence that relationship.
I liked seeing this owl, especially because it was, he's getting older and he's getting long in the tooth and his skills are starting to slip and they're getting ready. They're already prepping the next one. So he's reaching the end of his life. He's reaching the end of his plan. And I thought that was a kind of a neat thing and just a neat variation on what we've seen so far from them. We've seen them feel fear, and he was afraid of Batman. And then when he sees him the next time, once again, I felt fear again. And it's, Bruce. And I thought I was like, wow, that's kind of an interesting factor.
I wonder what's surprising. See, here's the funny part. When we've seen the members of the court, usually we see them wearing the owl mask.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're a secret society. Here's a funny question I have. Batman's going to take the fight to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to see any surprising reveals as to, like, maybe one or two people that might be under the masks? What citizens of Gotham might be there? Who might shock us that they are one of the court and always have been? So is that something we're going to get explored in this storyline, or is that something for the future? But there's an opportunity there to really have a shocking reveal of somebody who all along has been a member of the court.
See, I don't know enough of the Gotham citizenry for it to be a shock to me. It's that, like people like Commissioner Gordon, which there's no way in heck Jim Gordon would be one. I couldn't even tell you who the current mayor is of Gotham.
Haiti.
I don't know. What?
Haiti.
Oh, okay.
Because remember they were rescued?
Okay, yeah. Okay, but yeah, I don't know. I would like to see some of the people under the mask, and I'd like to see them reveal that. And
what if it's Jim's wife?
Oh God, yeah, that'd
or
be
ex-wife? Yeah, I mean, there's or his son. I think the wife is actually more likely a possibility.
Now, current wife, ex-wife,
ex-wife. I'm talking about
ex-wife, yeah,
the one who's reappeared with Barbara. I don't know that. Let me clarify. I don't necessarily feel that they're going to go that route, but I think what's going to happen is when we find out somebody who is, there could be a shocking out. What if it's Lucius Fox? I don't think they would go that route either, but I think there are going to be some shocks when we eventually find out someone who's involved with the court. I think.
Now, instead of going Lucius Fox, I would go Lucius Fox's wife. Which I don't know if they've ever introduced her or mentioned her, but that would be kind of an interesting. Definitely, I think that would be an interesting owl because if it's Lucius, they would already. Because I'm assuming Lucius knows enough of the secrets, or he's smart enough that he knows all of the secrets of the Bat. But it's something he wouldn't share with his wife.
Right.
So that's why the Talons, when they first went into Wayne Manor, didn't know that Bruce was Batman. But they were going in thinking that, okay, this is Batman's benefactor, but this isn't Batman. They weren't prepared for Batman.
But what if he's been doing what he's been doing to hide in plain sight? And let me clarify, I don't think it's going to be a Lucius Fox, but I'm just throwing out an example here of what we could see from this as a possibility. There is a potential to have somebody truly shocking be a member of the court.
Oh, big time. And I'd kind of like to see that. I would like to see, somebody that you had no idea was in the court, but, it's...
somebody that might make you really uncomfortable.
Yeah, one of the names that just pops in my head, which it can't be, but Alfred.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that would be devastating. Or Hush, Tommy.
Sure.
He could definitely be a court, and that could be their way of bringing in the Hush storyline. And, because if Hush happened, it didn't happen exactly as it did before. Well, this could be the introduction to Thomas Elliot, to the whole universe. He's not Hush, he's an owl.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It doesn't necessarily need to go that route for me, but it was just something I thought was interesting. You were mentioning before this Talon. One of the things I really loved is we got to see him put in this situation where he was tested as a kid and went through severe burns. I love that when we see him as an adult, he's still got the scarring all over him from those burns. From his head straight on down.
Yeah, that's a pretty freaky test for the kid. And we've seen pretty freaky stuff from the Court of Owls, from the circus, from all the parts involved, but it's still, I was just like, really? Wow. Because, I think about any training or any, type of training I've ever experienced, heard of, or seen, that just goes beyond any type of rational, idea. I can't sit there and think, oh yeah, that's a smart idea. Let's maybe burn them to death. And if they live, hey, we'll train them. If they die, they die. Well, if they live, maybe they'll be really mad at you. Setting somebody on fire isn't a good way to earn their loyalty. It's a good way to get them to want to kill you.
Right.
So it's seeing stuff like that from the court really just always kind of like, wow, they're really extreme here.
And I want to clarify, I really did feel this was a very good issue because I really loved how this Talon was saying, well, let me see who my successor is going to be. And we actually see our first glimpse at Dick Grayson, being groomed and looked at as being the next Talon. Mm-hmm. This was him looking at his successor, and Batman's intervention really thwarted this particular Talon and built a fear mechanism in saying, what is this creature that's come in and kind of shaken up my world? Especially at my twilight of being a Talon. And that was just something that I really enjoyed in this whole thing, how spying on the Graysons led to Batman being involved, and Batman chasing this guy down led to a path that when he finally faces Lincoln March, comes back to haunt him when Batman shows up. But this creature even then figures out Batman's just a man, and I can take a man. But what happens when he can't? And that man has once again found a way to one up on this creature. I loved the way that this all played out. I thought it was a great story with realistically a very minimal Batman appearance. It really was more about this Talon.
Yeah. The prime focus on this was the Talon, who he was, where he was going, and how he got there. So it's, in a way, it's kind of interesting that this again handled the whole Talons, the whole Night of Owls story completely differently than the other titles, because the other titles showed you the Talon, gave you things, but it was always about the interaction of the hero with the Talon. Well, here it was more about the Talon, who they were and why they came from, and I thought that was kind of a neat way of handling it.
When that Talon finally escapes, especially after killing Lincoln March, I love how Batman was telling his team, Red Robin and Nightwing and Damian, that everyone needs to spread out and they need to catch that one. This really is about making sure that no loose ends are in place when it comes to these Talons. We got to round them all up because there's a lot of potential for extreme damage to not only Gotham but to freeing the other ones that have been put on ice, so to speak, because these creatures are able to, and I keep using the term creatures, but I really, at this point, are they even what you consider human anymore? I don't know.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
These are, in my mindset, these aren't human anymore. These aren't living creatures. These are animated corpses, from my opinion. And again, that's why I don't have an issue with the suspending the no-kill order on these guys, because you can't kill the dead. All you can do is just put them to rest, and that's how I see dealing with these guys.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with you 100%. They just happen to have the memories and personalities of what they were when they were once alive. I really enjoyed this issue. It was just, I wanted to talk about it because I thought the cover was interesting. I thought the Facebook discussion that was going on in our Facebook group was interesting. Because I agree, I was at first wait, where's my Red Robin story? I thought it was a really good issue. I do want that Red Robin focused story in the Bat universe soon. Because I really would like to see that relationship and what it's like, more than just him flying in the back of an issue like this. And I do hope we get that. But I'm not torn. I say that comment while acknowledging that this was, I thought, a really great Talon story that I really dug. I don't really have an issue with the cover. I thought it was a great cover. I do want to read that story that I was thinking I was going to get in this issue without taking away this one.
Yes, agreed completely. I do want to see Tim in this world and Tim dealing with this, and I As I said, who knows? We may not be done with this yet. There may still be that story coming down the line, and this guy isn't gone yet. So who knows? This may be one of those talents that comes back, 6 months from now, a year from now. You're like, oh yeah, remember him? Well, he's been surviving in the sewers now.
Cool. It's been a great event.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Once again, DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. This is the time to be checking out all of the amazing deals that are going to be up in June from DCBService.com. I want to remind you that they're a Comixology digital partner. If you do your digital shopping on their website, you get 5% off of your order. They already have amazing discounts, but an additional 5% off just for doing the same digital shopping you would be doing from Comixology apps. So please make sure to do that if you are buying any digital comics, and that's DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, Batman Death by Design, the deluxe edition hardcover that was just released. Chip Kidd, Dave Taylor, 112 pages, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. If you haven't picked up any of these original graphic novels that DC's been doing, these hardcovers, they're amazing. I mean, very well crafted. The paper quality is amazing. They're great teams. Stories have been home runs. There hasn't been one of them that I've picked up yet that I haven't felt very satisfied on the quality. So, and feel free to check the net and see, a lot of the buzz on these books because they're amazing. This is a great deal, though, to be able to pick it up for less than $13. So I want to thank InStockTrades.com for making that available. I'm sitting here saying to myself, geez, it's a slightly shorter show for us. I'm in the middle of my report card week. This is coming up in my last couple weeks of school. So it gets very, very hectic. And you've got a lot of hectic things going on in your end as well. But we wanted to make sure to get you guys a current, fresh episode about topics that we're really excited to talk about as we got on this show. But I'm laughing that an over 2-hour episode is going to get it's a short. I feel like I should apologize for it or something. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's kind of a casual episode for us, a chance for us to catch up on some books. But I'm just laughing at the irony of the fact that when we do like a 2-hour show, I feel like I should apologize for it. There's something wrong with us. Next week, I actually don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Jim and I are going to have to discuss that. There's a lot of options. What we're doing moving forward, we're going to continue looking at things like Night of the Owls and stuff, but we're also going to be looking at various books from the New 52 that we haven't visited in a while. And there's a lot of just terrific titles. And I want to make sure on our next week's show that we really take an opportunity to take a look at some of the titles that are outside of perhaps like the Bat universe and the Superman universe and touch on a lot of these great heavy hitter books that are out there. So Jim and I will talk over the next week or so, and I'll post on our website and Twitter and stuff like that, which will then go to Facebook as well. So if you're a part of any of our social networking sites and things like that, you'll get an update on what we're going to be doing next week. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Hi, it's us again. Jim and I were just talking about it, and there's 3 books that we're definitely talking about next week. Aquaman, Flash, and Wonder Woman.
Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sidelines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier